Okay, usually I say you probably just learned something about the person next to you. You might not have learned anything about the person next to you. You might have learned something about the person that they talked about, right? So I don't know what the most out-of-pocket thing someone has said to me. It was probably my wife, and she'd be mad if I said it out loud. Don't know what it is, but probably that. Why in the world did I ask you that question? Because I might say some out-of-pocket things this evening. So here's the deal. We've spent 3 weeks in a sermon series called What Do I Do? What do I do? And we've been trying to answer the question that I think all of you are asking. Whether you acknowledge it or not, I think many of you are very often asking yourself, what do I do? All of us are asking ourselves the question, what do I do? See, we want a process to help us make decisions in life. And maybe, I would say this, maybe more than a process, we want instructions for what we should do in any and every situation. I think that's what we actually want sometimes. We say we want wisdom, we want a process, we want Matthew to impart his old man wisdom to us with his new glasses, and we're like, just teach us a way to think about the world. But we actually don't want that. We don't want Matthew to teach us a way to think about the world. We want Matthew to answer our hyper-specific question that we have that feels most pressing. Like, should I date that girl? Or should I don't know, when I graduate, should I take this job? We want super specific answers, I think, often. And you aren't alone in that. I'll never forget my first year in Moscow. I moved here, and I started dating my now wife, Chelsea, and about a short amount of time into dating, I asked the guys in my huddle this question. I said, hey, should I marry Chelsea? And they said, I don't know, you're the guy that has to marry her, so you have to decide that. And I went, dang it. I wanted you guys to just tell me what is the right answer, what should I do? I want there to be a really quick solution. See, I didn't like their answer because it put the pressure on me. I had to make a decision. I wanted something more black and white than that. See, I think we want a clear answer for what we should do in any and every situation. And we've given some answers in this series, but even those answers that we've given so far, right, they take some discretion. They take some individual application. They take you thinking and applying them in your life, right? So Matthew, a few weeks ago, came up here and said, you should do good work. Like God designed us to work in the world, you should do your work and work well. And you might have gone, okay, Matthew, that's awesome, but what kind? I've got 2 job offers on the table. What kind of work should I do? And likely if you would have asked Matthew that after his sermon, if you would have walked up to him after he got done preaching and said, Matthew, I've got this job offer and I got this other job offer. They're both good. Neither of them is selling drugs. They're both good things. I'm doing good things out in the world. I could build hospitals or build schools. What should I do? And he would have gone, I guess you need to make a decision. It's up to you. And the next week, Matthew came up and said, you should steward your money and your time well. And if you would have come up to him with a mock budget and a mock schedule and said, but how much time should I give? How much money should I give? How exactly should I manage it? What should go where? He would have said, well, I can give you some principles, but a lot of that is up to you. You've got to decide. And Caden came up here last week, and he said we should live our life to glorify God and make disciples. But if you went up to him afterwards and were like, Caden, how should I do that? With all of my time? How should I practically make a disciple? He might have whipped out some Resonate shapes and here's how you make a disciple. This is the missional living wheel. You walk through this, and then here's the discipleship square, and you walk through that after they confess and believe and do the Jesus stuff, right? He might have done that, right? But he also would have said, well, you have to figure out what this looks like in your life. You've got to figure out how to apply this. See, everything we have given you so far in this series takes some nuance, some specific application to your life. It's not a quick fix answer to all of your specific circumstances. But this week, I want to do something different. This week, I want to give you a catch-all. I want to give you the answer to the question, what do I do that works universally for every single Christian? Everyone who says, I follow Jesus. And I want to give you something that helps you answer all those other questions. How much to give, where to work. It's a bit of a universal framework. I'm giving you guys the secrets to how to live life as a Christian. It's a really simple answer to the question, what do I do? Here's what it is. Lose your life. Lose your life. That is the answer to the question, what do I do? If you're in this room and you say you're a Christian, you are supposed to lose your life. And if that sounds crazy, Let me show you where I'm getting it from. Because I'm not just being cheeky. I'm not just being extreme. I'm actually saying something that comes straight from the mouth of Jesus. So turn in your Bibles to Matthew 16, and I'm going to give you a little bit of context because we're jumping into the middle of a story. So Matthew chapter 16. So far in the narrative of Matthew, Jesus has been traveling, and he's been performing miracles, and he's been teaching. And his disciples, the men who follow him, they have witnessed all of this. They left their family and their homes to follow Jesus because they think there's something special about him. In fact, he's even sent them out to go and preach in different towns and cities, proclaiming that the kingdom of God is at hand. And slowly but surely, these disciples, these people that followed him, they're getting a clearer and clearer picture of who Jesus is. That Jesus is more than just a religious teacher, that he's more than just some rabbi like the other rabbis. And when I say slowly, that they're getting a picture slowly, I mean slowly. You will see, if you read the Gospels, that the disciples are often confused by the things Jesus says and does. In fact, in the passage just before what we're going to talk about today, they've been worried about how they don't have bread. He said something about leaven and Pharisees, and they're like, we don't have that much bread. And he's like, do you remember, I just fed 5,000 people with 7 loaves. Do you remember that? Why are you so concerned about bread? See, they don't quite get Jesus all the way, all the time. So Jesus then turns to them and asks them a question. He says, who do people say that I am? And the disciples are ready for this question. They've heard some theories out there in the world about who people are saying Jesus is, and so they're loaded. They got 3 answers. They're like, some people say John the Baptist. I know he died. They think you're him still. Some people say Elijah. He died way longer ago. They think you're him too. Some people say Jeremiah or another prophet from the Old Testament. These are the things people are saying you are, Jesus. But Jesus then turns the question on them. He says, who do you say that I am? And they're a bit slower to answer this one. Only Peter speaks up because Peter likes to speak up. He's a bit of an extrovert or maybe just dumb. Unclear. Maybe both. Extroverts seem dumb because they talk out loud when they shouldn't. Peter says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Good answer, Peter. In other words, he says, you're the one who's come to save us. You're of special significance, Jesus, above and beyond the other prophets, above and beyond Elijah, above and beyond John the Baptist. You're the one that the Old Testament prophecies say was coming. A coming king who's going to restore Israel, a new and better David. He's saying you're not only going to overthrow our oppressors in the world, but you're going to lead Israel, our nation, to right worship again. See, the disciples think they have a really clear picture of who they think Jesus will be. It's likely part of the reason they started to follow Jesus. If this is the person who's going to save the people of Israel from their oppressors, if he's going to establish them as a kingdom of people who worships rightly, they have signed up to be in this new king's squad. They've said, I want in on that. But Jesus has a really different picture of who the Christ is and a different thing he's inviting his disciples into. And he makes it clear in a conversation with Peter, and then he turns and makes it clear to the rest of the disciples. So we're going to read that interaction, and I want to show you 3 things. 3 things I think we see in that interaction that are true of us too. So we're going to be reading from Matthew 16. We'll read verses 21 through 28, and we'll read the whole thing, and then I'll go slowly through it. So here it is, Matthew 16, verses 21 through 28. From that time, it says, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised. And Peter, I said Peter was dumb. Watch this. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, far be it from you, Lord, this shall never happen to you. But he, that is Jesus, turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You're a hindrance to me, for you're not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. And then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay each person according to what he's done. Truly, I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Okay, let me just slow down and go through this and show you a few things that I think we see in this text. Here's the first. We all have a life we want. We all have a life we want. Track with me here for a second, and I'll show us it in the text. See, like I said, Peter has just said that he thinks Jesus is the Christ. And for Peter, there is likely a whole bunch of things that he thinks that means for him. Peter is expecting a Christ that wins at the end of the day, who establishes his kingdom on the earth, who's beloved by the people of God, right? Who then Peter can join as he rules and reigns. See, Peter's walked around with Jesus. He's seen Jesus gather crowds. He just saw Jesus gather like 4,000 people and give them some bread. He's like, Jesus, you're like a famous person. Like, I've signed up to follow a famous person, and they're going to make you king, and I am going to be one of your homies when you're king. In fact, right after Peter tells Jesus that he's the Christ, Peter probably thinks he has a pretty special position in the kingdom because Jesus looks at him and he says, I got a new nickname for you. You're going to be Rock. Peter's like, ooh, that sounds like important. I'm going to be important. And Jesus says, I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And Peter's like, you're not handing me any keys, but that sounds real important. Like, I got an important role in what Jesus is doing. See, Peter has a life that he thinks he is signed up for in following Jesus. And he probably feels pretty good about it. He likes the life that exists in his head. Like, he knows he had to leave his family for a while, but he's like, yeah, I got to leave my family, but family someday, I'm going to be holding the keys to the kingdom of heaven. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to get them, and then we're all going to be real important, right? He thinks he's got a life that is going to be so good, all that he ever dreamed of. But Jesus is going to subvert his expectations. Look at it in the text. From that time, it says, in other words, from the time that Peter said, hey, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God, when Peter announced, here's who I think you are, from that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Now, this isn't the life that Peter thought he was signing up for. Like I said, Peter knew that the life he signed up for required some hard things of him, but he was not expecting this whole suffering thing. Certainly not expecting that the guy who was supposed to be starting this whole new kingdom was going to die. Are you kidding me? Imagine for a second, if someone recruited you on, I don't know, a church plant. Someone came up to you and said, hey, do you want to go and start a new church with me? I want to train you how to do it. In fact, you're going to be my right-hand person. The whole time you're going to come with me, and someday you're going to go and do this too. You're going to go start a new church too. And then you were like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm going to sign up to do that. And after you said, I'm totally down, I'm going to sign up to do that, he went, oh, dude, that's so good. I can't wait to get where we're going. You know, they're going to hate me so much when we get there. So much so that they're going to murder me. Yeah, it's going to be real good. So I'm going to be murdered. Do you want to come still? You'd be like, whoa, that's not what I signed up for. Are you kidding me? See, Peter has a life that he wants to live. And Jesus has totally flipped the script on him. Jesus is telling him, hey, actually, follow me. It's not like it's going to look like that at all. Now watch how Peter responds when he finds out his life that he signed up for isn't what he thinks it is. It says Peter took him aside. He took Jesus aside and he began to rebuke him, saying, far be it from you, Lord. This shall never happen to you. See, Peter hears Jesus say, Peter, the life you thought you signed up for, you're not actually getting that. The life you want, following me, doesn't include that. And Peter says, nope. No, I'm out then, Jesus. The life you're describing, Jesus, it's not the life you and me are going to live. Let me tell you, Jesus, you aren't going to die. No suffering for us, please. Let's skip that part. See, Peter is scrambling. He's working to defend the life he wanted. He wants to keep it. He doesn't want anything about the life he's dreamed up to change. And he's taken steps to make it happen. He's pulling Jesus aside. No, Jesus, that isn't the plan. That isn't how this is going to work out. We need to plan something different than that, Jesus. Stop with this whole dying thing. That's really weird. We're not going to talk like that. Look what Jesus says to Peter about this, though. He turned to him and he said, get behind me, Satan. You're a hindrance to me. For you're not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. Notice Jesus has two categories here. The things of God and the things of man. And he says what he just described, suffering, dying, Those look like the things of God. But what Peter is advocating for, whatever it is he's advocating for, some sort of crossless Christianity, a following of Jesus that never demands that he suffer or experience difficulty, Jesus says that Peter is advocating that because he's fixated on the things of man. In other words, Jesus is saying, Peter, you're caring about all the wrong things. That's why you're talking like this. And it's causing him to miss what God is actually doing in the world, what God actually cares about. In other words, the life that Peter wants comes from caring too much about the things of man, and he's going to miss out on the things of God if he stays caught up in all the things that he's dreaming about for his life. He's going to miss out on what God is actually doing. See, Peter is so attached to this life that he wants, he's literally willing to rebuke Jesus for it. Can you imagine the audacity? Like, some of you guys won't even tell me or my wife when you disagree with me. You're like, don't agree with that, but I'm not going to say that out loud. Connor and Chelsea stare me. Imagine like Jesus. Like, you've watched this dude like heal people in front of you. You're like, I've never seen someone do that. And you're going to take him aside and be like, hey, Jesus, come here. Let me tell you. You got some things wrong about this whole dying thing. We're not going to do that. Could you imagine the audacity? But that's what Peter does, because he's so attached to the life that he wants. Now, Jesus is going to make some things abundantly clear. He's going to tell Peter how he should be thinking instead. He said, hey, your mindset on the things of man. Now he's going to say, here's how you should think instead. And this is where I'm actually getting that language of life. Peter doesn't start to use it, but Jesus is going to use it here. Here's what Jesus is going to say. He's going to say, here's my summary statement, to follow Jesus, you must lose your life. To follow Jesus, you must lose your life. Look at the text. It says, then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Let me break down what I think Jesus is saying here, because I think we've gotten used to this whole cross language. See, we aren't surprised to find Jesus talking about crosses, right? We all know, reading this text, that Jesus died on a cross. So when Jesus starts talking about crosses, we're like, yeah, classic Jesus stuff, the whole cross thing. But to his disciples, this would have sounded way more punchy, way more out of pocket. Like, imagine if someone was like, hey, to follow me, like, let's all grab our lethal injections and we're going this way. That's bonkers. You'd be like, sorry, what? Lethal injection? What now? See, the disciples would have seen this for what it was, a call for their death. Jesus is saying to follow him is to kiss your life goodbye. First, he says it by saying, take up your cross. That is, take up your method of painful, torturous death. Pick that up if you want to follow me. And then if that's like unclear, if you were like, is he asking them to die? Is that what he's asking them to do? He makes it even more clear in the next verse. He's saying, lose your life. Whoever loses their life, he says, for my sake, will find it. Now, what does Jesus mean? I don't want to sanitize this. To some extent, he's literally asking them to give up their physical lives and die a death for his name's sake. See, Jesus is going to be killed not long from now in the text. We're past the middle point in Matthew. He's on a one-way trajectory for the cross. And according to tradition, all of the men that are following him, the men that he says this to, minus Judas, who kills himself, all of the rest of them, they're going to die following him. Like painful deaths similar to his. So on the one hand, Jesus is calling his disciples to have a real willingness to die for the sake of Jesus rather than abandon him. That's part of what he's asking. But I don't think that's all he's saying. Notice he starts by saying, anyone who would come after him must deny himself. They must deny himself. See, you could say this whole denying yourself thing is like part of the dying bit. You're like, oh, like it takes denying yourself to want to die physically, so this is just about dying physically. But I think it's more far-reaching than that. See, I think that Jesus is saying that what he's getting at is not just a willingness to die for him. I think it's more than that. It's a willingness to deny yourself for him in all of your life. to give up your life. That's what he's going to call it. Giving up your life. The things you want, the things you have planned, the life you always wanted, the things of man that Peter is setting his mind on, power and wealth and significance and reputation, the things that everyone around you cares about all the time. See, this isn't just a willingness to literally die, but a command for a constant choice of self-denial. A figurative death to the life you thought you would live, the life you would choose for yourself, the plans and hopes and desires you have that are out of alignment with Jesus' will and his ways. Here's the way the reformer John Calvin puts it. Talking about this verse in his commentaries, he says, this self-denial is very extensive. If I could underline something, I'd say very extensive. And it implies that we ought to give up our natural inclinations. In other words, all the things we naturally want, and part with all of the afflictions of the flesh, and thus give our consent to be reduced to nothing, provided that God rules and reigns in us. See, this is seen by Calvin and by me and by the church in history to be a pretty far-reaching request for self-denial. Jesus is asking his disciples here, are you willing to stop pursuing the life you wanted to follow me? Are you willing to give up the things that you're naturally drawn to? See, I think Jesus is letting his disciples know that if they're to come after him, to really follow him, then every single thing in their life is now on the table. It's now on the table. He has the right to ask them to give up any of it. That's what he's saying following him looks like. Not just the parts they're comfortable with, not just the parts they understood they were giving up when they first signed up, because they didn't understand they were giving up a lot of things. Not just the chunk of their life that feels spiritual, right? Not just Sunday evenings, not just the parts of their life that they have come to see as missional and part of the mission of God. He's not saying, hey, the parts of your life you categorically think of as ministry, be willing to sacrifice in that area to serve me. I would say this, not even just the things in their life that are sin. Jesus asked them, he calls his disciples to a high standard of personal holiness, but I think this command, this request by Jesus is not just saying, hey, give up the things that are sin in your life, it's give up even the good things in your life. Be willing to part with anything and everything. And I can say that because Jesus is going to ask his disciples to give up things that are good, to give up things like their families. Families aren't bad, they aren't sin. But Jesus is saying, hey, some of you are going to give that up. He's going to say, hey, give up your security. At one point, someone says, hey, can I follow you? And he says, hey, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but I'm homeless. I have nowhere to lay my head. Homes aren't bad things to have. But Jesus is saying, it is within my rights, if you're going to follow me, to ask you to give up anything, even your very life. Not just, hey, give up sin. That's the starter. Be willing to give up anything. See, Jesus here is saying that following him looks like such a willingness to abandon the things that you previously cared about. It's as though you died. That's what he's saying following him looks like. He's claiming the right to ask any of his disciples to give up anything in their life. And not to joylessly sacrifice, not to be oh, God, I guess if you're going to twist my arm, make me do it, I'm going to fight you every step of the way, but I guess I'll give up the stuff you asked me for. No, he's not asking for that. He's asking for a joyful giving up of anything because it's as though you've already died to it. That's what he's describing. I want to draw your attention to something else in this passage. Look who Jesus says this to. In the beginning of the passage it says, then Jesus told his disciples. Then Jesus told his disciples. See, Peter pulled Jesus aside. He goes, hey, Jesus, can we have a word here real quick? None of this whole dying business, please. And Jesus, when he rebukes him, when he calls Peter Satan, he doesn't publicly shame him, although Matthew apparently is within earshot or whatever, or Peter told him later, he's like, yeah, Jesus just called me Satan. That was bad, dude. It's not good, right? Jesus privately rebukes Peter. But now, Jesus made sure that all of his disciples hear this. That's what the author of Matthew is saying. He's saying Peter and Jesus just had a private conversation, but now he's going to talk to everyone, all of his followers. He's going to say this because this isn't just a message for Peter. It's a message for all of them. And in case it wasn't clear that this is for all of them, and maybe even the people that follow after them, he's going to double down. He says, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Why am I pointing this out? Because I think it is so easy to say that other people, special people, should live according to Jesus' words here. Easy to say, well, Peter's special, right? That's why Jesus is challenging him so hard. I'm just an average Christian. I don't have to live so radically. Even easy to say the apostles, man, the first disciples of Jesus, they're all here hearing Jesus say this. They actually lost their lives for Jesus. He must be talking to them. Even in our context, I think so easy to say, oh, that's for the church staff member. That's for the person who works full time in some sort of ministerial context. That's for Caden. That's for the guys that live at Foxhole or the girls that live at Shoreline, or if you name your house, I guess you've got to deny yourself and let people rummage through your fridge or whatever. That's for the extra special good Christians, not for everyone. But Jesus is not letting us whittle out of this. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. The clear and straightforward meaning of the text is this, that to follow Jesus is to lose your life. That's the clear and straightforward meaning. To make it mean anything else is to do biblical gymnastics with it because you don't want to obey what it says. This is how 20th century pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer put it. When Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. Come and die. So church, before I get to the third thing that I think we see in this text, I'm pressed to ask here, what are we living like in this area? Are we living like Peter here? Do we have a life that we're trying to hold on to no matter what? No matter if it's out of alignment with God's will and God's purpose? See, we often think that the disciples are just a bunch of bozos, right? It's easy for us to be like, silly Peter, Jesus has to die, right? Stop being so dumb, Peter. The older I get, the more I'm like, Peter is dumb, and it's good that he's dumb because I'm as dumb as him, if not dumber. I think we need to ask ourselves, are there areas where our minds, like Peter's, are set on the things of man? Is that what we live like? Is there a life that we want to keep so badly that we would go to Jesus and to his face disagree with him about where he's going with us? Here's what I mean. I think there are lots of things in our lives, whether we know it or not, that if we were told by God, give that up, we would respond like Peter, nope, nuh-uh, Jesus. And so I think we have to ask ourselves the question, what is that for you? What is the life that you are gripping so hard, unwilling to give it up if Jesus were to ask? What is that for you? What would you take Jesus aside and rebuke him for? What would you go, hey, Jesus, now be reasonable. Don't approach this part of my life. It's not fair for you to call me to give up that. Look at that other guy. You didn't call him to give up that. You can't ask me to give up things like that. What is that in your life? Is the life you want all wrapped up in comfort? Like you say, I would certainly sacrifice everything for Jesus unless it meant sharing my room with another human being. Nope, not going to do that. I'm never having another person share my room. Or my food. I'm never, that whole open fridge policy. I'll be honest here for a second. About a year ago probably, I realized my wife and I always tell you guys, take whatever's in our pantry, take whatever's in our fridge. And as we watched you guys eat our food, we started to buy you guys bags of chips and stuff. And we would hide our Trader Joe's snacks in a little cupboard, away from everyone. And our fizzy water, our LaCroix, I'd be away into the cupboard by the bathroom so the little students don't take it. And I realized I got convicted because I would come in during Village and I'd grab my rolled corn spicy tortilla chips from Trader Joe's and I'd be eating them. And then someone would be like, hey, can I have those? And I'd be like, no, you can't have these. Far be it from you, Jesus, to tell me I got to give up my Trader Joe's spicy chicken. You know Trader Joe's is in Spokane, Jesus. I don't get these all the time. They can't have these. I'm serious. I got like cut to the core. Because I was like, I say I would give up anything. That I love our church well enough to give you guys the shirt off my back. That's what Jesus says, right? Like if someone asks for your clothes, like give it to them. Give them your tunic as well, he says. Meanwhile, I'm like, eat the Doritos, like the plain Lays, while I snack on my rolled corn tortilla chips, right? That's not losing my life. Is your life wrapped up in comfort like that? Like, do you hate having people in your space, touching your stuff, breaking your stuff? Is your life so wrapped up in comfort that you're unwilling to lose any part of it for anyone else? Is your life, the thing you're holding on to, is it wrapped up in your relationship status? Like you would follow Jesus anywhere except out of the relationship you're currently in. Or maybe you give up on that relationship because like you're not into him that much anyway, like kind of looking for an excuse to dump him, and this sermon seems like a good enough one. I'm giving up my life. We can't date anymore. Thanks, Connor. Like you'd give up this one, but certainly not one in the future. You wouldn't give up a vision of your future where you got married and had the exact number of kids that you wanted. No way you would sacrifice that. Or maybe it's the inverse for you. You're so scared of losing the freedoms that you currently possess in your singleness that you would rather perpetually date than commit and get married to the person that it is clear you ought to get married to. Like you've been dating someone for like 3 years and you're like, dating is fun because I don't have to give up anything. So Jesus, don't ask me to give up that part of my freedoms. I want to stay single as long as I can. Or maybe that's not you, but you are like secretly scheming in your head. You're like, I would get married if there was like some sort of easy out, right? Like if divorce was an option for me, if I like decided I didn't like this person and I could get out of it, then I'd maybe be willing to give that part of my life to Jesus. Chelsea and I, we were rewatching Ted Lasso recently, which is way more crass than I ever knew it was. So, like, don't invite your disciples over to watch Ted Lasso. It was really awkward as they made, like, dirty jokes. And I was like, oh, yeah, shield your eyes and ears and hearts, friends. But at one point, Ted, and I'll spoil this. This came out during, like, COVID, so you've missed it. Trains already sailed. Trains don't sail. Ships sailed. At one point, Ted and his wife get divorced. Which is really sad. But they don't actually tell you at any point like what is going on that makes them get divorced. Literally, here's how much our culture thinks divorce is normal. The wife goes, I wish it was like it used to be, where it was so easy. And Ted goes, I'm sorry, I better let you go then. That's the whole thing. It's just kind of hard. So they get divorced. And I think some of you just snicker to that, like, oh, culture. But many of you, I think, are like, man, marriage terrifies me because there's no way out. If there was some way out when I like decided it was too hard or I didn't like that person anymore, I would totally give up my relationship status to God. I would totally follow through and get married to the person I probably should get married to. But like, there's no easy way out, so I'm going to avoid it. Or maybe that's not you. You're just the person that's so picky that you never ask any girl out. You just whine about how single you are all the time. Oh, I'm getting older. I'm 22 and I still am not married. Like, is that the part? I'm serious. Is your relationship status the part you're unwilling to sacrifice? I'll follow you anywhere, Jesus. Just don't tell me what to do romantically. Don't you dare. Don't tell me that's not a good person to date. Don't tell me get married. Don't tell me don't get married. Don't tell me anything about my relationship status. Jesus, please and thank you. Or maybe it's not that kind of relationship. Maybe the thing that you are unwilling to lose in your life, the urge you're unwilling to deny, maybe it's in your friendships. Maybe you're afraid to experience rejection in the friendships that you have, so you keep the whole like being Christian thing on the down low so that you don't have to acknowledge to your non-Christian friends like, hey, I actually believe that there's a gospel that would save you and you're currently outside of it. You're actually living a life that's self-destructive to you and destroying you in your relationships, and it's going to end in eternity in hell, and I should tell you that, but I'd rather not because it'd be really awkward for me from here on out, so I just won't mention it. I'm not willing to give up that part of my life. Or maybe you're afraid to be vulnerable with any of your friends, afraid to open up, to tell them what's really going on, to confess sin, to process things because you're afraid they'll betray you. that they'll go tell someone else about it, or you're afraid that they won't reciprocate, that you'll live a life where you give more than you get in a friendship. And you guys call those friendships toxic. I call those friendships like gospel friendships, where I'm giving out of the abundance that God has given to me to another human being, but you guys are like, ooh, yucky, gross, like I don't want to give more than I get, right? Or maybe it's not that, maybe you're down for that, but I think this one is way too real in our church. Maybe the life you're afraid to lose, the thing you're holding on to, maybe it's that you're unwilling to care for and be friends with the people who you didn't choose, the people who just aren't a perfect fit for you. In other words, you're unwilling to love your brothers and sisters in the church or in your village or in your house or in your huddle unless you like vibe together. You can be in the same room as them. You're okay with that. You can worship with them, right? You can process some stuff with them when it's the special hour and a half that's allotted for you to like say stuff when you're together. You can extract from them the life advice that you want, but go out of your way to care for them. Like think about them and pray for them. Help keep them accountable. Pay attention when they're sharing things about their life with you. Like go to huddle and not just expect to share about your life, get asked questions, get the life advice you want, and get out of Dodge. Like actually listen to the other people, love them. Are you serious? To call them your friends, not because you have a hobby in common, not because you naturally like clicked, but because you have one thing in common that will last eternally, that God has chosen you and drawn you to himself and saved you, brought you into his family, to sacrifice your preferences for friends and go, these people, this church, this group that I'm a part of, these are my new best friends because we love Jesus and we live in the same city, and that means we need each other in this Christian life. No, never. Never going to do that. That's giving up too much of my life, Jesus. Better find friends that I clicked with better, that I got to choose. Forget this whole huddle is a place of mutual love and vulnerability and care thing. Is that what you're unwilling to sacrifice? Is that the part of your life where you say, go no further here, God, because I think it might be for many of you. I've watched it happen again and again. And I'm not saying this as someone who, like, it doesn't affect me in my own life. Matthew said this. I moved to Moscow 6 years ago. I moved from being a missionary in East Asia, and I had no friends here. And I got thrown into a huddle with three guys, so Jeff and Logan and Steve, who's now a pastor in Reno. And I'll be real, we had literally nothing in common. Like if you see Logan and Steve, like they're like built because they go to the gym and like working out. That is not me. Not me. Like Steve loves disc golf so much, he's like semi-pro at it now. Not me. Jeff, the first time I met him, we were staying at an Airbnb, and after we got done with dinner, he busted out the cleaning spray and cleaned every surface. And I'm like, dude, I don't even pick up my clothes when I'm done showering. This is not me. See, we had nothing in common. And they had all these pre-existing relationships. They'd been in relationship in Moscow for years. But I walked into huddle and I went, I better love these guys. They're the only ones I got. And we still do. Week in and week out, birthdays and babies born and tragedies, every last bit of it, we do together. And now Chelsea and I are about to restart. We're moving to the UK with this tiny team of people, and we're looking at them going, you guys are going to have to be our new best friends. And there are only two other dudes moving with me. And I've known Dakota for a long time, but our other friend, Noah, who's moving with us, I've never lived in the same city with this man. We have very little in common. He dirt bikes. Do I look like I dirt bike church? I do not dirt bike. They ski. I'm like, skiing? I'm an indoor cat, friends. The only thing we have in common is we're extroverted, so it's never quiet when we're in the same room together. But Noah's going to be one of my new best friends. Why? Because he is my brother in my church, and we're all we got. Not because we clicked, not because it's in my preferences, but is that the life that you're unwilling to lose? Who your friends are? Or is it something else? Is it the money that you're making? Do you already plan what you're going to do with every penny? And you're wondering, how much do I need to give to get Jesus off my back? Is it 10%, 12%? What's the minimum? That doesn't sound like losing your life to me. Is it your preferred home, the place in the country you want to live the most? Is that the life you're unwilling to lose? Is it your career? I just talked about Noah, but we have two friends moving with us to the UK. There's a team of us. You'll see them later, but we've got two friends. These are the Bells. Noah is the guy there, and then his wife, Sam. Noah and Sam got convicted a few years ago that they should move overseas and give their life to reaching people from all over the world. And see, many of you might have had a moment like that, like maybe you went to ResCon and were like, I want to reach people from all over the world. And then you found out what it would take to reach people from all over the world. Someone said, hey, you'd actually have to move to a place that's not here. And it may actually take giving up your career. Like Sam and Noah were in the breakout session for this at ResCon, and lots of people were like, hey, how do I have exactly the career I want right now with no changes and still move to Reading? And Sam and Noah sat there incredulous. They were like jaws on the floor. Because here's what Sam and Noah are doing. Sam is a NICU nurse. She went to school for lots and lots of years to become qualified to take care of newborn babies that were born prematurely. And she loves her job, and she is excellent at it. And she is putting her job on hold to go and work and live in Reading for 3 years and reach the campus in the city of Reading. That's all she's doing the next 3 years. Dropping everything about her career that she worked so hard for because she said, this is what God has for my family. Noah is a successful engineer with Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories. He moved up to Pullman to get a job at SEL. Very successful. He's doing great. He loves his job. And just the other month, he said, you know what, I'm running low on engineering jobs to look to, so I started to apply for teaching jobs. They pay about half the money, and I'll be doing something that's totally different, but whatever it takes to get us to where God has called us to be, we will do. That looks more like losing your life than not. See, I think many of us wouldn't even take our second job on the list if God asked us to, let alone say, I'd drop whatever it is about my career if it means obedience to Jesus. Are you willing to lose your life? Let me make it clear. I'm not just saying that you should give up those things for the sake of the mission of God. I'm not throwing Noah and Sam up going, all of you just need to move on church plants. That's the choice. You may have to give up some of the things that I just listed for the mission of God, but I think it's deeper than that. I'm not saying you should give up these things to please God. Jesus has already made God pleased with you. And I'm also not saying that invariably you will have to do whatever in life is the least attractive option. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you should make your decisions by going, what feels the most like I'm getting kicked in the face? I picked that one, right? That's not what I'm saying. That's an oversimplification of what Jesus is asking. See, some of you may give up all of those things, and some of you may give up none of them. What I'm asking is, are you willing? Do you have a commitment to follow Jesus, a love for Jesus that has so reordered your value system that it's as though you've died to the things that you used to live for? They just aren't that important to you anymore. Not nearly as important as Jesus, that you would leave it all behind to follow Jesus. Have you come to a place like that? Because Jesus says that's what it really looks like to follow him. And I would submit to you, if you are like, yeah, there's plenty of areas that I would not allow Jesus to ask me to give up, then you would have to ask yourself the question, am I actually following Jesus, or did I fake myself into thinking I was? See, Jesus looks at his disciples and he says, if anyone would follow after me, let him take up his cross, deny himself, and follow me. It's the same question he's asking us. Will we be like Peter, grasping at the life we really want, fighting with Jesus over it, or will we willingly lose it? Let me show you, just briefly, why I think we should do it. Why I think we should say yes to the question, will you lose your life? Here it is. Keeping your life is worthless. Keeping your life is worthless. Losing it is worthwhile. Here's what Jesus says. What will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay each person according to what he's done. Truly I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I'll be really, really brief here. Jesus made something abundantly clear. Refusing to follow Jesus because there's something in this life you would rather cling to is worthless. His question is rhetorical, right? What would it profit a man if he gains the whole world, if he gains all of the life he ever wanted, if he gets all of that? What profit is it if you lose your soul? What would a man give in exchange for his soul? He's trying to get at the reality that your soul is infinitely valuable, that you would exchange nothing in this life for it. He's trying to hammer home that there's a real risk here of choosing the world and refusing to follow Jesus. And I'll make it clear, what saves you eternally, that is faith in Jesus. Not whether you make the right decisions and say no to the right things and yes to the right things, but I want you to hear that if what saves you is faith in Jesus, that faith in Jesus means you see Jesus as who he really is. The Lord of your life, the one who is of supreme value. And if you have a pattern where you constantly choose the things of the world instead of Jesus, over and above Jesus, can you really say you have faith in him? Can you really say it? There's a real challenge here, a real statement of the significance of the moments we look at Jesus and say, nope, Jesus, not that life. Do we really think we can cling to the life we have, the one we want so badly, and at the same time grab hold of the life that Jesus is offering? You've only got so many hands. And Jesus is making it clear, it's a bad trade to cling to the life you have now. It's a bad deal. It's not worth it. Don't take it. But he's clear about something else too. Losing out on the things in the world isn't all that big of a loss because he's coming back, he says. And he's coming back in glory. His beautiful, good, perfect presence is coming back. And the church has always lived like it's going to happen soon. And he says, when I come back, I'm bringing gifts, rewards, undeserved rewards for the people who've given up everything to follow me. And unlike the life we could grasp in this world, this we won't ever lose. See, I told you a few months ago, church, the story of a man named Jim Elliot. I told you that he went to a tribe of people that was really hard to reach. That everyone around him, they said, hey, if you go to those people, they will likely hurt you or kill you. I told you that he eventually went to that tribe of people with a group of his friends and that they were killed, trying to reach them with the news of Jesus. But what I didn't tell you is what made Jim Elliot the kind of person that would do that. See, Jim for years had said something over and over again that echoed this passage. He said, he is no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. He said, the life I could have pursued, the life where I got the degree, got the job, got the girl, got all the things that I wanted, if I clung to my life as tightly as I could, I would lose all of it eventually. But if I'm obedient to Jesus with my whole life, then even if I lose the most precious things to me, I will gain something that I will never lose in the presence of Jesus for eternity. And that's not foolish. See, church, this is a bittersweet day for me. Like Matthew said, it's my last day preaching. And Lord willing, this is our last week in town with all of the students in one place. And we've lived here for 6 years. That's longer than Chelsea and I lived anywhere other than the homes we grew up in. And we have tried for 6 years to live like Jesus asked us to in this passage. We've tried to give up everything in our lives. We've tried to give up our space, opening up our house as many nights of the week as we can. And we have some sweet memories with many of you in our home. We watched some of you grow up from non-believers to baby believers to leaders in front of our eyes. We have some of the sweetest moments that I will ever remember in my life. But we also have some moments that weren't all that much fun. There were nights where I had to ask questions like, why is there spaghetti stuck to my wall? Or mornings when I woke up to a broken TV and a sink full of dishes, or sometimes just a sink full of like food and water. And I was like, how did you guys do this? Or wondered when you all would leave as you like yelled at 2 a.m. and like were lifting each other up at game night. And I was like, how do I get them out of my house? We tried with our space to again and again remind ourselves it was never ours. We tried to lose our life in our space. We tried to lose our life in our time. We tried to say any hour is available for you. From 6 a.m. huddles to late night phone calls, we tried to lose our lives with every minute. We tried to lose our lives in our stuff. We tried to give everything in our hearts to this church. And we haven't always done the best job. There are times that we prioritized ourselves where we fell short. where we said, Jesus, it feels like you asked too much in this area, but we have tried for the last 6 years to lose our lives for the love of the church and for love of Jesus. And we have done it not because we were anything special. We didn't think we were special Christians. We didn't do it because we were on a church staff team. We didn't do it because I was going to plant a church someday. We did it because we thought this was how every Christian should live. Every single one of them. I used to get in fights with people in my house because they would say things like, yeah, and this is kind of a ministry house too. And I would look at them and I'd say, I'm a Christian. This isn't some sort of fancy house. This is a Christian's house. And all Christians should live like this. And we absolutely meant it. We think our lives, we have lived as the bare minimum of what the church should be like. And we hope that in some way, over the past 6 years, we've shown you a little of what that looks like. And now, in my last Sunday, I want to invite you to lose your life too. To lose your life like that. Not because Chelsea and I did it, because it's what Jesus did for us. Now, notice his wording here. He says at the beginning of the passage, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross. See, Jesus isn't saying that we should take up our cross, that we should deny ourselves, that we should lose our lives as he watches from the sideline. He's asking us to follow him. To follow him as he sweats blood in a garden, asking God to allow him any other method. If there's any way this cup could pass from me, he said, let it be, God. But not my will, but yours be done. That's denying himself. He's asking us to follow him as he endures suffering and scorn at the hands of the world, beaten, mocked, rejected. He's asking us to follow him as he gives up his life for our sake on the cross. And he's asking us to follow him as he's raised to life in eternal glory. See, Jesus lost his life, and he's inviting us to lose ours too. The question is, will you come after him? Will you follow him? Or are you holding on to your life so tightly that you, like Peter, will pull him aside and say, far be it from you, Jesus, you're not going to ask me to live like that? Will you lose your life to find it? Or in trying to keep your life, will you lose it? I know that's a lot. So I've got 2 questions for you guys to talk to with the people around you about, or even to just think about in the comfort of your own minds. Here's what I want you to ask yourself. How does Jesus' call for his followers to lose their life affect the way you think about following him? How does this call affect the way you think about following him? And finally, are there specific areas in your life that you need to be more comfortable losing? Why don't you sit and talk about that with the people around you for a few minutes?